Hi, my name is Corey, and I'm a CG specialist here at Chaos. Today, I'm very excited to share with you our next generation render engine, V-Ray 5 for Revit. With V-Ray 5 for Revit, you'll now be able to take advantage of real-time rendering, work with a continuously growing smart content library of high-quality 3D models, take advantage of streamlined workflows to achieve greater realism for your materials, and even go beyond rendering with powerful new post-production features. We'll start by exploring Chaos Cosmos, our ever-growing universe of smart content, and discover how easy it is to import high-quality 3D assets into your projects. Cosmos assets are optimized to get you as much detail as you need automatically, while making it straightforward to quickly find great-looking 3D assets for your projects. We'll then take a look at the new V-Ray Vision Viewer. Vision is a real-time renderer that functions like a game engine under the hood to get you real-time feedback as you work. You can use Vision not only as a viewer to help visualize your projects, but you can even save images from it, as well as seamlessly switch to V-Ray for rendering photorealistic results. Next, let's take a look at a variety of new workflow improvements, ranging from adding sketch lines to your geometry using contours, to using the new improved sun and sky in V-Ray 5 to achieve stunning-looking lighting scenarios. We'll also explore the added realism you can get using powerful new textures for randomization. Finally, we'll explore the new light mixing and compositing capabilities available in the new V-Ray 5 frame buffer, which enable you to polish your images further and make drastic changes to your image's lighting, even after rendering. To start, let's first take a look at the Chaos Cosmos browser that I have opened up here. Chaos Cosmos is our brand new universe of smart content that is now seamlessly integrated into V-Ray 5 for Revit. It brings you an ever-growing library of high-quality and render-ready models to choose from that work right away in your V-Ray projects with just a few clicks. You'll see at the top here that we have three main categories to choose from: 3D models, HDRIs, and creators. For example, if I click on the HDRIs tab, you'll see that we have a bunch of different HDRIs for you to choose from to light your projects. If we click on an asset, we can open up an enlarged preview of it. On the right, we'll get some additional information about it as well, such as its file size. To use it, I can simply click on the download button here, and it will download right away to either my default local directory or a directory that I've specified. Let's now take a look at the 3D Models tab. Here you'll find categories with hand-picked 3D models to choose from, ranging from furniture, vegetation, vehicles to people. For example, if I select the furniture section, you'll see that we have a wide variety of furniture models and styles to choose from. Let's select this two-seater couch. Once again, if I want, I can download it, and then when ready, simply press Import to use it in a project. Now let's head to the accessories section, where you'll find a wide variety of household decorative items, appliances, and even food to choose from. You'll see here that I can also quickly download a bunch of different assets by simply clicking on the blue download icon at the bottom right of each thumbnail preview. Let's also explore the light section. Here you can see we can easily download a bunch of different lamp styles, ranging from pendants to floor lamps or table lamps. There's also a ton of vegetation to choose from, including trees and indoor plants, as well as bushes, grass, and flowers. The Cosmos library also includes vehicles, such as various cars and trucks, as well as a motorcycle and even a helicopter. Lastly, you'll also have access to incredibly realistic, scanned 3D models of people. Note that the Creators tab at the top also allows you to sort 3D assets by their creator. We teamed up with some of the world's leading 3D content publishers to populate the Cosmos library and ensure quality and consistency. With Chaos Cosmos, it's now incredibly easy to find and download just the right content you need to create impressive and detailed visuals for your projects in minutes. On that note, I'll also show you how you can import Cosmos assets into a project and use them with V-Ray Vision to quickly set up a nice-looking interior. Let's switch projects to discuss V-Ray Vision, which can get you real-time render results. To get started with V-Ray Vision, we can simply click on the Vision icon up here to open up the Vision Viewer. You'll see that it opens in a separate window, which you can position on your screen wherever you'd like. In this case, the live link with V-Ray is currently active, which means that any changes you make in your Revit project will be automatically updated and displayed in the Vision Viewer. As you can see, V-Ray Vision is a lightweight real-time viewer that is smoothly integrated right into V-Ray 5 for Revit. It functions like a game engine under the hood, using 3D rasterization to get you lightning-fast previews without ever having to leave the V-Ray ecosystem. Using V-Ray Vision, you can adjust your lights, navigate around, and shade your projects with real-time feedback as you work, making it easier than ever to set up and explore your projects right away. To demonstrate, let's open up the V-Ray Appearance Manager and the Asset Editor here and explore how we can change the wooden floor material for this project. Let's first get the material here for the wooden floor, called oak flooring, and then I'm going to drag and drop this marble floor material onto it. Now, you'll see right away that the wooden floor turns to a marble material in the Vision viewer. However, its scale is looking too large, so let's bring down the width and height to something more appropriate. There we go, that's much better. Now you can see how quick and easy it is to make changes to your model's materials when working with V-Ray Vision for Revit. Let's go ahead and close the Appearance Manager and the Asset Editor now, and take a look at using Chaos Cosmos with Vision. To do so, I'll simply click on the Cosmos icon here to open up the Cosmos browser. Okay, you'll see now that I have the Cosmos browser open on the left and Vision on the right. Let's see how we can use the Cosmos browser to quickly import some Cosmos assets into our project and render them with V-Ray Vision. I'm going to click on the Furniture category here, and let's see if we can find a nice chair for this project. Since I already downloaded a nice office chair in advance, I'm going to switch on the Show Downloaded Only toggle here to make it easier to find. Alright, I like this black chair here, so let's click the Import button to bring it into the project. You'll see that we're now prompted to place the chair somewhere within the plan view. I think I'll click over here somewhere to place the chair behind this desk. There we go, that works for me. Furthermore, assets are listed in the V-Ray Appearance Manager and the Objects tab, where they can be scaled, rotated, or randomized to suit your project's needs. In this case, I'm just going to switch to the Rotate tool and rotate this chair a bit so that it's facing more towards us. Great! Note that all Cosmos assets are imported as native Revit families, which appear automatically categorized in the Revit project browser, so that you can easily find them. Native Revit families can also be replaced with Cosmos assets, the same way as when working with proxies. Cosmos assets also utilize a variety of Revit family templates. You'll notice that Cosmos asset placement is smart and straightforward. For example, the chair we just placed, as well as any furniture, will be placed on floors. Meanwhile, accessories such as decorations, vases, and so forth will recognize any surface, so that you can easily place them on table or shelf surfaces. Next, let's find another asset to import that we can place on the desk here. Let's head to the Accessories section, and this time, I'm going to click on the little green Import icon at the bottom right of the thumbnail for this vase. Once again, we'll need to place the asset somewhere in the project, and in this case, I'll set the vase here on the desk table. Another amazing benefit of using Cosmos assets is that they automatically show the right amount of detail, so that they look great wherever you view them. For example, in the viewport, they appear lightweight for smooth navigation. Meanwhile, they are optimized to appear more detailed as needed when working in real time with V-Ray Vision. This means that the farther we go away from an asset when using Vision, the less detail is rendered, and vice versa. Furthermore, when rendering with V-Ray or using Chaos Vantage, assets will appear in full photoreal detail, and they also render consistently across Cosmos-supported host applications, as well as across all V-Ray render engines for a seamless render experience no matter your preference. Okay, now that you get the basic idea of working with Cosmos and Vision, I'll skip ahead to show you what this image will look like with a few more Cosmos assets already added to it. That's looking pretty good so far. Now, let's go ahead and exit the Live Link mode here and enter the full screen mode for Vision. Next, let's take a look at Vision's camera navigation modes. At the moment, we are in orbit mode, which means if I click and drag to move the mouse around, I'm able to orbit and rotate my perspective. Meanwhile, clicking the middle mouse button and dragging lets me move my position. However, we can also switch to fly mode by clicking on this toggle here. Fly mode enables me to fly around the project like in a game engine, using the WASD and QE keys. I can then left click and drag to look around. Next, let's take a look at adjusting the lighting here. You'll see that we can easily tweak the sunlight's direction by holding Shift and using the left mouse button. This will control its altitude when going up and down, and adjust the azimuth when going left and right. The sunlight adjusts right away, allowing us to get some interesting light coming in through the windows here, all in real time. I can even hold Shift and drag the right mouse button to adjust the sun's intensity up and down, or press F5 to reset the sun position to match the original project state. Note that since Vision is a viewer, any changes you make within the Vision viewer will not affect your Revit model and data. Also, note that at any time, you can select the V-Ray 5 render engine of your choice and render out a high-quality ray-traced image. This means you get both the speed advantages of real-time feedback as well as the benefits of rendering with ray tracing. Great! Now that you've seen how we can get real-time feedback, working with the incredible capabilities of V-Ray Vision to speed up your workflow, let's move on to take a look at the new V-Ray 5 frame buffer. The new V-Ray frame buffer has been redesigned to offer you powerful new functionality to go beyond rendering, including a new layer-based editor to enhance your post-processing capabilities. You'll see that I have the new VFB open here with an image I have loaded in at the moment. Let's start by going over the icons at the top right here, which serve as our main render controls. These icons are similar to the render controls in V-Ray Next, but redesigned, allowing you to save your image out of the VFB, render a bucket or pixels based on proximity to the mouse pointer, draw out a render region, start a render, and so forth. On the top left, we have a few drop-down menus, where you can save and load images, access render controls, adjust view menu options like the display color space, and access the VFB settings, which I'll cover in a bit. Let's head down to this handle on the left here, which we can double-click to open up the history panel. Here we can save rendered images with their post-production corrections, and do A/B comparisons between images. However, to use it, we'll first need to enable the history in the VFB settings. In the History tab, check on Enabled, and then you can specify a history folder path to save your history images to. You can use the project folder path, or add a custom path to a different folder as well. I'll paste a folder path I copied in advance here, and make sure to click Save and Close to save any changes. Now, we can press the plus icon up at the top of the History tab to save the image I have currently loaded into the VFB history. You'll see as I hover over it that I'm also given some information about the image, such as its resolution. And if I right-click on the image, I can add a note to it, as well as choose from options, such as loading in the layer tree preset from the selected image. I'll add a note, and then simply click Elsewhere to save it. Now you'll see that if I hover over the image, I can see the note. Next, let's click on the A/B icon here, which enables us to do an A/B comparison between images, or compare up to 4 images simultaneously. Meanwhile, the icons to the right will let you load in an image or delete an image from the VFB history. Also, note that at the bottom of the VFB, the toolbar gives us pixel value and coordinate information based on where our mouse is hovering over the image. Okay, let's now head over to the right side of the VFB and click on the handle to open up this tab. Here you'll find the new Layer Panel editor in V-Ray 5, which enables us to manage all of our post effects right inside of the VFB, from doing color corrections to new features like light mixing and compositing, which we'll cover later on. For a quick overview of the layer editor, you'll see that we have several color correction layers already set up here, such as white balance and exposure controls. To add a new layer for color corrections, simply click on the green plus icon, and then you can select from a range of color corrections and tools for adjusting the image. For example, if I click on the filmic tone map, you'll see that it is added to the top of the layer tree, and allows us to choose from different types of mapping curves and gamma corrections for affecting the image. Down below, you'll see that the selected layer has properties exposed, which we can adjust to fine-tune the look of our image. For example, I can lower the opacity of the filmic tone map correction we added to tweak its visibility. The filmic tone map also has different preset types that I can cycle through, which each affect the image by altering the overall light and dynamic range. Pressing the arrow keys over the type here will let me cycle through them rapidly for a quick comparison. There are also additional parameters below for certain preset types to customize the tone mapping. These controls allow you to adjust the dark spots, highlights, and midtones for the image, which you can experiment with further to find a look that suits your preference. We'll work with the layer editor in more detail later, but for now, let's head back up to the top to take a look at the other icons available here. You'll see that we have options for saving and loading in layer tree presets, which we'll cover in more depth later. We also have a Stats tab, which gives us helpful information about the project and our devices, such as performance and memory tracking data, depending on the project and the rendering mode. Alright, now you've seen an overview of the new V-Ray 5 frame buffer. Let's move forward to take a look at some exciting new features that can speed up your workflow and get you stunning looking images. In V-Ray 5 for Revit, we've introduced new contour controls, which allow you to easily create stylized images or make renders look like scale models. In previous versions of V-Ray, you would normally need to follow a time-consuming shader setup with the V-Ray Toon material to create contours. Now in V-Ray 5, you can simply add or remove contours as an attribute to any material, with no need to reassign anything. In addition, contours can also be assigned and controlled globally, so that you can easily apply contours to your entire project. To demonstrate, you'll see that I have rendered an image of an exterior here. Let's take a look at how we can add some contours to it. In the V-Ray Asset Editor, I've already got the house's stucco material selected. I'd like to add some contour lines to this. So to do that, we can click on the Add Attribute icon, and you'll see there is an option to add contours to the material. Now, a Contours menu dropdown appears, where you'll see we have different options available to customize them. I'm going to click on the color swatch for the line color and set this to a bright shade of magenta. Notice that the swatch preview above updates as well, showing a thin contour line at the top. Next, let's also enable the inner line control, which gives us separate control over the inner edges. Let's drop down these settings and brighten the inner line color from black to white. Okay, now let's start a render to see how these changes affect the image. Great! As you can see, the contour lines have appeared around the edges of the house geometry here, and we're getting both the white and magenta colors for the inner and outer lines respectively. To stylize the rest of our image with contours as well, I'm going to select a few other materials that I've already set up contour attributes for in advance. I'll simply re-enable the opacity for them so that we can see how the image looks with additional contour lines. And there we go. Now you can see how we can quickly stylize our images simply by adding the contours attribute to our materials and giving the contours some interesting colors. Of course, you can customize the lines even further using the additional contour attribute parameters. For example, adjusting the width of the lines to make them appear thinner or thicker. That said, what if we want to just quickly apply contours to the entire image without having to do so on a per material basis? In that case, we can simply use the global contour controls instead. To do so, open up the V-Ray Appearance Manager and head to the New Contours tab. Simply enable the Contours checkbox here, and this will turn on global contours for all objects in the project. You'll also find familiar controls here, like in the contour attribute settings. For example, I'll set the line color to a shade of purple. I'll also decrease the width quite a bit for these lines so that they don't appear too thick. We can also enable split inner lines as well, so that we can have separate control over the inner edges again. Note that the global contour parameters below, such as the width units, will have an effect on all materials with contour attributes as well. In this case, let's go ahead and start a render to see how the global contours affect the image. Okay, now you'll see that we have global contours applied to the entire image, giving it a much more stylized and cartoony appearance. In addition, note that the contour lines we set up earlier are still visible as well. This is so that you can easily apply specific contour settings to certain materials, while still enabling global contour settings for the rest of the materials in your project without any hassle. Alright, now you've seen how you can use V-Ray 5 to add contours to your projects and create stylized looking images, simply by enabling a global checkbox or adding an attribute to your materials. In addition, you can easily customize their appearance using straightforward controls, without any need to spend time reassigning materials. Okay, let's now take a look at the V-Ray Proxy Mesh in V-Ray 5 for Revit. We've updated the V-Ray Proxy Mesh to streamline your workflow, so that you can now save proxies along with materials. For reference, the V-Ray Proxy Mesh allows geometry to be imported from an external mesh at render time only. The geometry is not present in the Revit model and does not take any resources. However, in previous versions of V-Ray, whenever a proxy mesh was added, materials had to be reassigned manually, and this could become a time-consuming procedure. Now in V-Ray 5, when you save a proxy mesh, it will include any assigned materials, so that you can easily reuse the mesh in upcoming projects. Let's go ahead and take a look at the updated proxy mesh to see how assigning materials works in general. You'll see in the VFB that I've already loaded in a proxy tree mesh here. However, it does not yet have any of the materials I want to use assigned to it. At the moment, it only has basic colors assigned by default, which help to distinguish the different parts of the proxy's geometry that materials can be assigned to. If we head to the asset editor, you'll see that the proxy contains material slots in the right-hand flyout menu in the materials section, showing the default assigned colors. Let's go ahead and assign some proper materials to it by simply dragging and dropping them into material slots for the proxy. Now if I start another render, we'll see in the VFB that these newly assigned materials have appeared on the proxy, giving us a nice and proper looking cherry tree. Great! Now let's see how we can save this proxy with its materials for reuse in other projects. In V-Ray 5, we've now made this fairly straightforward. All we need to do is save the proxy as a VRMat file, and then both its source file, as well as its VR mesh, and its referenced material asset files, such as texture maps, will be saved along in a subfolder called Maps. In this case, since I have already set up a custom library folder, which you can see in the left-hand flyout menu, all we need to do is save the proxy mesh into the library, and it will save as a VRMat file automatically. To do this, I can simply drag and drop the proxy into the library on the left, and now it will be saved in my custom library folder, with all of its materials included and assigned automatically. Now, let's hop over into another project to demonstrate how we can import the proxy with its materials included. Okay, I've now loaded up a different project here with a tree geometry object already placed in it. I'd like to override this tree geometry here with the proxy mesh that we just saved into our custom library. Since we have already imported the same custom library here containing the proxy, all we need to do is drag and drop the proxy mesh into this project's geometries to import it. And if we check in the right-hand flyout menu, you'll see that the proxy's materials are already assigned as expected. Great! Now that we've imported the proxy mesh, we need to add it to the Revit model. To do so, we can simply drag and drop the proxy into the Objects tab of the V-Ray Appearance Manager here to override the existing tree geometry in this project. Alright, now that we have overridden the geometry with our proxy, let's go ahead and press render to see how it looks. And there you go. Now you can see that the cherry tree proxy has replaced the original tree geometry that was in this project, and that its materials have all been automatically assigned since it was imported from a custom library folder. As long as the library contains the proxy saved as a VRMat file, which automatically saves textures and the proxy's VRMesh file, then the proxy will have all its materials properly assigned by default. This makes it so that you can easily reuse your proxies across different projects and get rendering right away, without needing to spend time manually reassigning materials. Alright, now that you've seen how to use the updated V-Ray proxy workflow in V-Ray 5 for saving proxies with their materials, let's move on to take a look at some additional new features in V-Ray 5. Alright, I've loaded a project here with an exterior render of a sunset lighting scenario. Let's now take a look at how we can improve this image using the new improved sun and sky model. For context, in V-Ray 5 for Revit, we have now exposed multiple sky model options that you can choose from. Each of these procedural models will generate a different looking V-Ray sky texture and offers its own unique characteristics that impact the appearance of the sun and sky in your images. In V-Ray 5, we have also introduced a new improved sky model, which offers especially striking sunrises and sunsets, and is particularly useful when you do not want the sun to be positioned completely above the horizon. Let's head to the V-Ray Lights panel and make sure that the light type is set to V-Ray Sun. I'll leave the other settings here as they are. Next, let's drop down the new sky settings in the V-Ray Lights panel. Here we can select a sky model, as well as access some additional parameters for tweaking its appearance. For example, we can control the amount of dust in the air to affect the sky color, or alter the sunlight to appear more yellow or blue. There are also parameters in the ground albedo section below, which, for example, let you set the ground color below the horizon, or control how high or low the horizon line appears. In this case, I'm just going to switch the sky model here over to Improved so that we can see how the new sky model affects our image. Now, you'll see right away in the VFB that the new improved sky is giving us a nice and vivid looking sunset here. There is a striking and vibrant spectrum of colors, helping to give our image a dramatic and lively result. For comparison, here's the original sunset again that we started out with, which was using the Hosek sky model, in contrast to the new improved sky model that we're using now. Note that the sun and sky also adjust their colors automatically based on the sun's position and sun size parameter. This enables you to quickly experiment with a variety of different moods in your projects. For example, to create a large dark red sunset, as well as produce many other kinds of results, all using the new improved sky model. Okay, let's move on now to take a look at another new feature. In V-Ray 5 for Revit, we've made improvements to Worksharing so that multiple users can now work simultaneously in the asset editor. Previously, the asset editor was locked only to a single user, meaning that other users could not create materials until the owner closed the asset editor. Now, we've made it so that multiple users can open the asset editor and create assets simultaneously, then synchronize to update and save all the changes for each user. To demonstrate, you'll see that I have a rendered image here showing some chairs, a coffee table, and a wall behind it. The wall is looking a bit plain at the moment, so let's see what we can do about that. If we head to the asset editor, you'll see that the material applied to the wall here is called wood, but it does not appear like wood at the moment. We're in luck, however. A colleague of mine just informed me that they are working on materials at the moment in their local copy of the project. They are already finished making changes to this wood material, so I can sync to Central to receive the update. In that case, let's go ahead and press the Synchronize button up top here to start the process. I'll also check on the Compact Central Model option, and then press OK. After we give it a moment to sync, you'll see that the V-Ray Asset Editor has updated. Now the wood material has changed, giving us a nice proper wooden color and a diffuse texture as well. You may have noticed that some additional materials have appeared too, and there are a few new V-Ray geometries down below. On that note, let's go ahead and do another render now, just to see how the image has changed with the new wood material applied to it. Alright, that's looking much better. Now you've seen how you can take advantage of the updated sync process, which allows multiple users to work simultaneously in the asset editor, and easily sync to Central to receive one another's changes. Alright, now let's explore the new randomization parameters we've introduced in V-Ray 5, which make it easier than ever to create realistic-looking materials. You'll see that I once again have rendered an image of these chairs and coffee table in front of a wooden panel wall. This time, let's take a look at how we can use the new randomization parameters within the multi-sub texture to create some color variations for the wall and make it less monotone looking. To start, you'll see that I have already selected the wood wall material here in the asset editor. Let's head to the diffuse color swatch and right-click on it, and then under the Wrap-In menu, choose the multi-sub texture. This will place our diffuse colors texture inside of the multi-sub, so we can make further tweaks to the diffuse. The multi-sub texture distributes multiple textures to many objects via one single material, based on specified IDs or a random distribution. In V-Ray 5, we've introduced a new set of parameters, which allow you to tweak the hue, saturation, and gamma to speed up your workflow, while also keeping the number of textures used low. To use it, let's first set the getID_from mode to establish what ID to use to feed the multi-sub texture data to the material. I'll choose Random by Render ID, which will assign random colors based on render IDs that are internally generated by V-Ray. Now we'll see the new randomization parameters exposed, with each of their input values representing a percentage of the hue, saturation, or gamma range. There is also a seed for changing the randomization pattern below. Let's start by increasing the hue parameter a bit, and press Render to see how that impacts our image. Alright, as you can see, we're now getting some randomized hue values across the wooden panels in the image here. I increased the hue quite a bit so you can see the effect it has, but since these parameters are fairly sensitive, I'm going to bring this back down so that we don't overpower the image. Next, let's try increasing the saturation parameter. Now you can see that the wooden panels are looking a bit more saturated, and we're also still getting a subtle amount of color variation thanks to the hue. Alright, let's bring the saturation back down a bit and increase the gamma variation to see how that looks. Now you can really see the difference that the gamma parameter makes on the wooden panels here. Once again, this parameter is fairly sensitive, and I think the result is a bit too dramatic for my taste. So let's dial back down the gamma a bit. Okay, great. I'm liking that a lot. Now the wooden panels have a much more varied and randomized appearance than what we started with, which helps to make the wall look less monotonous. For comparison, here's the original wall that we started with before adding any randomization, which you'll see looks much more plain in comparison to our more detailed and realistic looking final result. By simply making tweaks to the multi-subtexture's hue, saturation, and gamma parameters, we have been able to easily create a more diverse and non-uniform looking panel wall. Now you can quickly introduce variation into your materials to make them appear more interesting, less repetitive, and overall more realistic, all thanks to the multi-subtexture's powerful randomization controls. Okay, now let's explore another method for adding randomization to textures, this time using the new UVW placement texture in V-Ray 5. At the moment, I've got a render of a marble floor here. You'll notice, however, that it has some visible repetitive tiling. Let's see how we can use the new UVW placement texture to randomize this pattern and create a more realistic looking material. In the asset editor, you'll see that I've selected the marble floor material. To add the UVW placement texture, I'll click on the diffuse color texture slot so that we can see the bitmap texture loaded in here. Now let's drop down the texture placement menu. In V-Ray 5, we can now switch the type to the new mapping source option, which will let us use an external UV placement source for the texture placement. Then, we can click on the UV placement texture swatch to add the UVW placement texture to it. The V-Ray UVW placement texture operates as a custom mapping source that can be shared between different textures. It is equipped with randomization parameters that allow you to randomize the texture placement. The randomization controls are located in the randomization dropdown here, where you'll see that we have a bunch of different parameters to work with. For this project, I'm going to enable the new stochastic tiling option, which changes the mapping based on the UV tile and can be useful for textures with noticeable repetitive patterns. Now let's start a render to see the effect this has on the marble floor. And right away, you can see that the repetitive tiling pattern is gone, and we're getting a much more varied looking result. For comparison, you can see here the original floor that we started with, as opposed to the more natural and randomized result we get using the UVW placement texture and the stochastic tiling option. And if you wish to tweak things further, you can also adjust the various offset parameters in the randomization controls, or use the UV rotation parameter to restrict the angle of the rotation of the stochastic tiling to create a variety of different blending results. You can also use the tile blend slider beneath the stochastic tiling to control the amount of edge blending between adjacent tiles. However, as you can see, even just simply enabling the stochastic tiling option has removed the repetitive pattern from the original texture. This helps to make our material look much more realistic, without any need to fix textures using an external application or spend time hassling with various parameters. Alright, let's now move on to take a look at post-processing in V-Ray 5. I've opened up a project here that I've prepared for rendering. However, before we start a render, I want to make sure we are set up for light mixing. Light mixing allows us to adjust the intensity and color of the lights directly inside the new V-Ray frame buffer, both during and after rendering. Lights can also be enabled and disabled, making it possible to experiment with a wide variety of moods and lighting styles, without having to re-render your image or navigate to individual light parameters. To set up a project for light mixing, we'll need to first add the light mix render channel. So let's open up the V-Ray settings and head to the Channels tab. Down below here, you'll see that we have the option to enable the light mix channel. You'll also see that there is a group by parameter, which specifies how to group the lights for editing in the VFB. You can select between the existing Revit light groups, individual lights, or the default grouping by family type. I'll leave it on family type, which means that unique lights of the same family type are distinguished in separate, editable channels in the VFB. Note that there is also a checkbox below specifying how linked project lights will be treated. If this is enabled, all lights from a linked Revit file will go to an individual VFB channel. Otherwise, linked project lights will follow the grouping rule specified above. Alright, now that the light mix render element has been enabled, we are ready to render. Okay, I've now got the rendered image here in the V-Ray frame buffer, so let's go ahead and do some light mixing. To start, we can switch to the light mix mode by first making sure the source layer is selected in the layer editor on the right. Down below here, in the Properties panel, you'll see that we have the option to switch between the RGB image and the light mix and composite modes. When I click on the light mix mode, you'll see that a list of lights appears below. These light channels represent all the lights that I have in the project, grouped by their family type. To begin light mixing, I'll press the checkbox next to the All button, which turns off all of the lights in the image. This can be useful because it allows us to build up our image's lighting from scratch. Down below, let's first enable the Rest channel. This contains all the lights that do not fit into the other groups or individual channels, as well as the atmospheric effects like the atmospheric fog here. Let's then enable the self-illumination and the environment channel as well. Great, now I'd like to make some tweaks. On the right here, you'll see that there is a multiplier value. Increasing or decreasing this value will cause the lights in this channel to appear brighter or dimmer respectively. I'm going to decrease this down a bit to give us an opportunity to create some contrast with the other lights. Notice as I drag my mouse down here that we're also getting feedback right away, so that I can quickly find a value that suits the evening mood I want to create. Alright, so far so good. Next, let's enable the second set of interior lights here and tweak their color a bit. In this case, I'm going to set their Kelvin temperature to 3500, which should give us a nice and warm looking result. Note that just like with the multiplier values, you can also play around with color values and get nearly real-time feedback to find a color that suits your image. Now let's enable the first set of interior lights as well. I'll also lower their Kelvin temperature a bit, this time to 4000, so that they'll stand out a bit from the other interior lights. Let's also bump up their multiplier. In this case, I'll set it to 2. Now that's starting to look much more like a nice evening lighting scenario. Next, let's enable the exterior lights. You'll see right away that they're pretty bright and overpowering here, so I'm going to lower them down to something near 0.5 as well. There we go, that's looking much better. Alright, I'm pretty happy with how this looks. As a final touch, let's also select the lens effects layer up here and enable them to give us some additional bloom and glare. Now with just a few tweaks, we've given this image an evening mood and a more contrasty look and feel without any need to re-render. Now let's see how we can go even further in post-processing by doing some compositing. Since I'd like to keep the changes we've made to the image here, we can simply send our light mix tweaks over to the compositor by clicking on the To Composite button. Now, you'll see that the layer editor up top has updated to the composite mode and now contains a folder named Light Mix. This folder contains all of the render elements for the different light channels, along with the changes we made while light mixing. Let's go ahead and twirl that folder up and explore doing color corrections and compositing on the image here. A major benefit of the new layer-based editing system is that color corrections can be added, removed, and reordered at will, or even use multiple instances of the same color correction type. In addition, the compositor enables you to layer render elements and use various blending modes, all right here in the VFB. Note that the layer system applies corrections from the bottom to the top, meaning layers on top of the stack are considered in the foreground, and the result of all layers below it is considered the background. To get started, let's right-click on the source layer here to add a new layer above the light mix folder. In this case, I'm going to add a render element so that we can make further tweaks to a specific aspect of our image. By default, you'll see that it is set to the RGB color element, but we can switch it over to any render element we included in the render. We've also got blending modes to choose from, a blend amount parameter, as well as a multiplier and color picker below. Let's switch this over to the atmosphere element. Now, you'll see that the atmosphere is already looking more pronounced in the image, because the blending mode is set to add. In this case, I'd like to make some more nuanced corrections to the atmosphere. We can do that by creating a color correction layer that is parented to the atmosphere, so that we affect only that specific render element. To do so, I'll right-click on the Render Element layer, and once again, head to the New Layer menu. This time, I'm going to add a Curves correction layer on top of it. Now, you'll see that a Curves layer has appeared above the atmosphere element in the layer editor, with a downward pointing arrow next to it. This indicates that the curves are applied only to its parent, the atmosphere, rather than to the entire image, allowing us to make isolated color corrections to the atmosphere without affecting any other layers. The curves allow you to remap the image colors using a Bezier curve, as well as save and load .acv curve files from Adobe Photoshop. I can adjust them by selecting a point and clicking and dragging on its handles to affect the shape of the curve. You'll see the atmosphere in the image updates when I make adjustments, enabling us to get very fast feedback as I test out different looks. If I give the curve a steeper slope like this, you'll see that the atmospheric fog effect is less pronounced, creating a darker and more contrasty looking image. Okay, I'm liking how that looks. Now that you've seen the fundamentals of compositing in the VFB, you can of course take these concepts much further, for example, by applying color corrections above the source layer to affect the entire image. Next, I'd also like to show you how layer tree presets work. In V-Ray 5, you can use presets to easily save and load in changes that you've made using the layer editor. One easy way to save or load in presets is to set up a presets path. You'll find this option in the VFB settings under the Layers tab. Pasting a path here will give me quick access to any preset files that have been saved at this path location. I'll paste a path I've set up in advance and make sure to hit Save and Close. Now, if I click on the Quick Access icon at the top right of the VFB, I'll see a list of several custom layer tree presets appear, which I saved to this file path location in advance. If I hover my mouse over them, I'll get a preview right away. Now, you can see how doing color corrections in the VFB can have a dramatic impact on the look and feel of an image. In addition, presets make it possible to create many different styles and moods for a single image, and then easily compare them using the Quick Access menu here. Note that saved presets can be used for any image containing the same render elements as the current image. However, you can also save universal presets that exclude any composite or light mix corrections if you only add and/or modify layers above the source layer in the layer editor. Lastly, when you're all finished with compositing, just don't forget to save your render out of the VFB by clicking on the Save icon. Altogether, the light mix and composite modes enable you to get creative in post-production and go beyond rendering to create polished, beautiful-looking images, all within the new V-Ray 5 frame buffer. In V-Ray 5, we've implemented a new coat layer for the V-Ray generic material, which makes it easy to add a shiny polished character to your materials, such as metallic paint, carbon with coating, certain types of plastics, varnished wood, and more. This can significantly speed up your shading workflow, and in addition, get you even faster render results using the coat parameters than with traditional workflows, such as using a blend material. We have also introduced a new sheen layer to the V-Ray generic material, which makes it possible to easily create fabric materials such as satin or velvet. The sheen parameters act as a top reflective layer on the diffuse color, resulting in a fall-off effect that enables us to create materials with a realistic, cloth-like appearance using straightforward controls. In V-Ray 5, we updated the dirt textures functionality with additional parameters. Now, it employs both ambient and inner occlusion modes, so that you can shade open corners instead of crevices with the occluded color. As a result, you can easily create procedural weathered streaks and dirt in crevices to create even more realistic and grimy-looking materials. We have also introduced a new workflow for using displacement in V-Ray 5 for Revit. Displacement mapping is a technique for adding detail to geometric objects without having to model it first. In previous versions of V-Ray for Revit, displacement was built into the V-Ray material, but could not be used outside of this context. Now in V-Ray 5, you can use displacement everywhere you need it to add even more realism to your Revit materials. With the new workflow, displacement is a separate asset, enabling you to easily add it not only to V-Ray materials, but also to native Revit materials as well. In V-Ray 5, We've also updated the entire built-in material library so that the new material parameters, such as the coat and sheen, are utilized. The quality of most materials has been increased as well, with high-resolution texture maps having replaced the old 1K texture maps. We've also improved the library download process, and if you have other V-Ray products also installed on the system, such as V-Ray 5 for SketchUp or 3ds Max, the asset files will be shared between them so that they are not re-downloaded more than once. And with that, you've now seen an overview of many of the powerful new features we've introduced in V-Ray 5 that can help you to create your own world. We've brought real-time rendering to you with V-Ray Vision so that you can work faster in your projects while taking advantage of the incredible 3D assets in the Chaos Cosmos library. Meanwhile, getting stunning and more realistic-looking images is easier than ever thanks to the new material layers and randomization options. And in addition, you can now go beyond rendering with the new V-Ray 5 frame buffer, using the incredible power of the light mixer, layer-based editor, and built-in compositing capabilities. With V-Ray 5, we give you a complete visualization solution. If you'd like to try out V-Ray 5 for Revit, you can visit our website, chaos.com, for more information and to download a free trial. Please feel free to check out our docs pages for additional information about these new features as well. And don't hesitate to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chaos TV, so that you can keep up to date with the latest new products and releases. Thank you so much for joining me for this webinar, and I hope to see you next time.